Margaret Amsler, a woman of many firsts. The first woman law professor in Texas, the third in the country. The only female graduate of Baylor Law School in 1937. The first woman appointed by the Texas State Bar as a member of the special committee. Margaret even wrote her own laws that still affect women in our society today.
History before that, the Married Women's Act of Texas. Before then, when a woman would get married, she was said to be suffering from disabilities of coverture. And it was almost like she was now a minor child. A minor child can own property, but being a minor, they can't manage property. They can't have anything to say over what really happens to the property. A woman back then, is before she married, as long as she's an adult, she could manage her property like an adult man could. But going back to the common law days, married women were said to suffer disabilities of coverture, like minor children suffered disabilities of minority. They could own property, but they couldn't manage it. And while they were married, their husbands took care of everything. They couldn't enter into contracts, they couldn't sell their property, and so they were a severe disadvantage. That one day they could manage their own property, the next day they couldn't. So this is obviously unfair, and so Ms. Amsler led a legislative movement to make that change. And so I think it was in 1963, she was behind the passage of this Married Women's Act, which said for a married woman in her separate property, she now has full power of management over it, that she can enter into contracts. That only affected her separate property. It was a couple of years later, before the legislature changed it and equalized all the rights between married men and married women and gave them all total equal rights. But that was the first step, and it was a significant step in our Texas history.
This is the place of inspiration for Margaret Amsler's writing of the Texas Married Women's Property Act. She grew up here with her father, Judge Nat Harris, who heavily inspired her wanting to become a lawyer. The Harris House, as it is now recognized by Baylor campus, is still run and well kept today. After law school and after getting married to her husband Sam, Margaret moved to this house in McGregor. This is also where her daughter Ricky was born and raised. Ricky still lives there today. Margaret made a lasting impression on many people, including family, classmates, and students, all through her life.
Very well in high school, and because her father taught part-time at Baylor, there was a reduction in her tuition. So she attended Baylor, and then she thought that she wanted to go to law school and be a lawyer, but her father thought that she should be sure, and also that she should experience living in another part of the country. And so she went to Wellesley in the Northeast and got a master's degree, I believe, in English literature. And then when she came back from getting her master's at Wellesley, she came back to Texas. She still thought she wanted to go to law school, but her father thought that she ought to do something else for a little while, just to be very sure, because he told her it would be a hard road. You have to work hard in law school to be a lawyer. So she got a job teaching high school in Rockwall, which is up near Dallas, and she taught English in a high school up there, lived in a boarding house, and I think it's interesting and sort of reflects on her independence and her self-confidence that she was also assigned to teach a tap dancing class at the high school. I don't know if this was a type of physical education or what, but she was assigned to teach tap dancing, and she did not know how to tap dance, and so on Saturdays she had to go into Dallas and take a tap dancing lesson, which she paid for out of her meager earnings as a teacher. And then the next week she would come back to the high school and teach the lesson that she learned, teach her students tap dancing. And she joked that she didn't know that her students had a very good tap dancing teacher or learned very much in tap dancing, but that was part of her teaching assignment when she was a school teacher. And so she taught school, actually for just a semester. She got very ill in the spring semester and was hospitalized. So only taught really half a year, but she was still determined that she wanted to go to law school after that. And so she started law school the next year and attended Baylor Law School.
This portrait was painted in honor of Margaret Amsler, a woman who accomplished so many great deeds. One of these deeds was actually becoming dean of Baylor Law School at one point.
Miss Amsler was appointed as the acting dean in 1946. The, the dean, Alan Flowers, according to our records, actually remained as dean until 1948. And I've gotten different takes on this, but apparently he just wasn't much interested in taking on that task in the post-World War II years. And so he was kind of absent, I guess, would be the blunt way of putting it. And Miss Amsler had to bring together a faculty. She had to do everything necessary to make sure that not only the former students knew that the school was up and going, and getting those students back and into the right sequence in the curriculum, but as would be the case at any time, she had to, of course, make sure that there was a general knowledge that the school had opened up so that other students who were coming out of college or near the end of their college career, because at that point you didn't have to have a bachelor's degree to come to law school, would be aware that Baylor Law School was up and running. From everything I've heard, she did a marvelous job in doing that, and I've been privileged, even though that generation is passing away, but I've been privileged to know a lot of Baylor lawyers who did that bifurcated career at Baylor Law School, where they started in 1941 or 1942, and they left for the service and they came back. Of course, most of those Baylor lawyers now are in their late 80s or in their 90s, and they're part of the greatest generation, and they have sadly passed away. But over the past 25 years, I've gotten to know many of them.
Margaret has affected so many people in her lifetime that her and Sam were actually given Amsler Park in McGregor, Texas. Amsler Park still stands in McGregor, Texas, right in the heart of the city where everyone can see it. Margaret Amsler, not only a woman of many firsts, but a woman who accomplished so many great things and affected our lives so drastically.